Hi guys! Today I wanted to show you the different ways that I use the monthly pages in my various planners. I've got 5 planners with monthly pages at the moment and I use each one in a different way. I'll start with my Hobonichi Cousin, which is the one where I always think that I use the monthly pages in the most conventional way, but then actually it occurred to me that there's so many different ways to use monthly pages that what I think of as conventional might be unconventional for somebody else. And that's one of the things that I really love about seeing the different ways that people approach their planners and their layouts, is that there's so many different ideas of how to use the same type of spread. So my Cousin is my work planner, and I use the monthly pages just to get an overview of the appointments that I've got for the month. So I list everything that is happening that's got a fixed time, and that's really just so that if I need to book a new appointment or I'm trying to arrange something with someone, I can just go straight to the monthly pages and see at a glance, free, not free, free, not free. That's all I use it for. I don't put any kinds of tasks on here. That might seem obvious to a lot of people, but I'm mentioning it because when I first started using this planner about nearly a year and a half ago, I was putting tasks in my monthly pages, and then at some point I realized that that was unnecessary because you don't really need your tasks in 2 places, and it made the layout feel confusing to me. So I just started using it purely for appointments, and that works really well. I also use it to write in events. So for example, here, this is the current month, June. Starting on Saturday night for 2 days, there's a Jewish holiday, Shavuot, and so I've written that in so that I know that it's a holiday and I shouldn't book appointments then. So that's the main thing that I use it for. Then up here on the left, you've got these check boxes. This is something that I love about the Hobonichi layout. And I use these check boxes just to write down overall tasks or projects that I'm working on for the month, as well as specific things that I want to be sure to remember to do sometime in that month when I don't have a more specific date for them. So for example, my overall tasks for the month are here. I have to polish my translation. This is for my current writing project. And then here are a couple of more specific things. I had to disseminate a call for papers for a conference, and I just knew that that had to happen sometime in this month, and so I wanted to put it here so that I could keep track of it and not forget to do it or have it get lost, because I wasn't sure about the specific week or day when I'd have to do those things. Sometimes there are overall tasks that will be lasting for the whole month, and I just want to keep in mind that that's what I'll be focusing on in that month. Then there are more specific things that are just notes to myself, like tell somebody about a workshop. I have to do that sometime in the month, and I don't have any more specific place to put it, if that makes sense. So when I see it here, for the whole month I'll be checking this, and there's no way that I can forget this. And if I don't manage to get one of these things done during the month for some reason, I can bump it, but at least I'll remember that it's there and that I have to do it. It won't get lost. The final thing that I use the monthly pages for in here is to map my progress on big projects. So this probably isn't very helpful to look at because it's kind of a shorthand, but as I mentioned, I'm doing a translation project. So I've written here the page numbers of how much I want to accomplish every week, and I've mapped that out so that I know this is July. I know that I want to finish it by the 3rd week of June, and then this is my overall project that I'm going to be working on for the rest of June up until the beginning of July, and then I move into a different project in the 3rd week of, the 2nd full week of July, and so on and so on. So I've actually got an overview, a breakdown of everything that I want to be doing in my big writing projects for the rest of the summer, if that makes sense. So it's just a kind of easy shorthand way of breaking things down into months and then weeks so that I know what's manageable and what's realistic. And then when I come to my weekly schedule, I can transfer the notes off of here and put them in the weekly schedule and then break them down into smaller day-by-day chunks. So that's how I use my monthly pages in my work planner. Basically appointments, events, and then over here things to keep track of for the month, and then on the Monday, because it's the first day of the week, I write in my overall goal for the week for a particular project. So that's the Cousin. Then the next one is the weeks, my personal planner, which has a very similar monthly layout because it's a Hobonichi as well. So the use of these monthly pages has evolved somewhat, and it's changed recently. So when I first started it, this is December, I was using it for things that I'd bought, which were in purple, so trying to keep track of spending. Then water intake, that's orange, and obviously I was color coding all of this. Then order tracking, which was different from spending because that was specifically online orders, and that was in blue, so I could monitor how long it had been. Then at some point I realized that it's actually more convenient having the online orders down here so I can see them at a glance rather than having to look through and see when did I order it, when did it ship. I can just see the whole thing down here. And also it's a good way of seeing how many orders I've got going at once so that I make sure not to order too many things in 1 month, which is always a challenge. And then I had exercise, which is in yellow. So the other thing that I had, which is in pink, is videos. This was a video schedule. So what I would do is write in the video that I was expecting to make on a particular day, sort of like a couple of weeks in advance, and then I would highlight it when I'd done it. So there are quite a lot of things going on here. But it was fine. As you can see, there's enough room for it. And I kept the schedule up for the next couple of months. Then at some point I stopped tracking water because it got complicated, because when I was drinking out of different sized cups, I wasn't sure what would constitute a tick, and it just got too complicated and I gave up, and I haven't been tracking water since then. But look at me, I'm still alive. I must drink some water still. So I still kept tracking exercise and expenses for a while, and then I stopped tracking them in here. I think I stopped tracking them altogether for a while, actually. But I was still tracking exercise and my video schedule, and then the orders down here, online orders. Then I tried to go back to tracking expenses, exercise, the video schedule. I kept up with that. That was how I was using it, like, kind of for the next few months, as you can see, until last month, when I realized that I don't really need to track exercise in here because I've got it in my weekly spread, and I'm writing down here how much I've done so that I know, like if I've done more than I need to for the day or if I have done less. And that's only because sometimes if I have a day where I'm just working the whole day and I don't manage to do any exercise, I tend to freak out, and I'm like, oh no, I haven't done any exercise. So then I can look back and see, but I actually ended up doing double the amount the day before. Usually that's to do with walking the dogs. It's not because I'm like a major exercise person. It's just because I want to make sure that I've done the minimum. So I decided not to bother tracking that on here anymore. And at the same time, I mentioned this in another video, so sorry if you've already heard this, I decided that there was no point in putting my video schedule down here because I just wasn't keeping to it and it was frustrating me, and I thought it's easier just to put it directly on the weekly spread and I don't have to plan that far in advance. So then I was essentially left with nothing to track in here. I wasn't tracking expenses because by this time I had my finance planner, which I'll show you in a minute. And so I had effectively a blank spread. And at that point, I started thinking about using this as a gratitude log, which I think that I'm still going to do starting in July, because my gratitude journal, which I will also show you in a minute, finishes at the end of the month. So in the meantime, for June, I started using this as a meal planner. I have got a separate meal planner that's joint for me and James, and it stays out on the table so we can both see it. But it's quite convenient having this one because this is with me all the time. So I can just fill it in, and then I always have it with me. It's in my bag. It's always extremely accessible. So if I'm very lazy and I want to check it, it's right there with me. As you can see, I didn't fill it in yesterday or today, so that's kind of rubbish because I didn't do the meal planning. But up until then, it's been quite consistent, and that's all I've been using this for. And then I've kept the orders at the bottom here, the online orders, because I find that is just the most convenient place to have them. And they're all in one place, and I know exactly what I've ordered and when I've ordered it, and that really works well. So the monthly spread in my personal planner is kind of a question mark at the moment, because right now this is technically a meal planner, but this is also a meal planner. So it feels a bit redundant. There's something in my brain that does not like writing the same thing in two different planners. So I don't know why, because it makes sense to have it here where it's accessible to me and also have it here where James can see it as well. But this is kind of like it's a question mark. What I'm now thinking is that I'll keep the meal planner in here and put gratitude on here, and that I will have this special super duper amazing One Book July experiment where I just try to put everything into here except for my work planning, which will stay in here. So that's what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking that this will stay as a meal planner, but we'll see. So anyway, those are a few different ways of using the monthly planner that don't involve event planning. So it's a completely different way from how I use the monthly pages in here, if you see what I mean. There are no events in here. And that's because in terms of events, I'm just like really pathetic, and I don't do very much, and most of the things that I do revolve around work. So I don't like go out a lot or anything. I go to the cinema, but I just put that on my weekly spread. I really don't feel like I ever have the need to consult a monthly spread to make appointments or arrangements or meet people, because if I need to book something, it will be in here. And if it's like something like meeting a friend, I don't have to plan it that far in advance. And I always know what I'm doing in the evenings. It's not like I have a lot of stuff going on in the evenings and I need to be careful not to double book, if you see what I mean. So somehow I just find it completely unnecessary to use the monthly planner in the same way that I use this for booking events. So that's this. Then on to the even more specialized planners. So this is my Disc Agenda Manta finance planner. And I'd like to be able to show you this, but because it's all finances, internet etiquette says it's not a good idea to like show all of your finances, even though I don't really care. So I'll just show you a blank page, and I'm sorry because this is kind of, you have to use your imagination, but it's not that hard to imagine because it's just numbers. So I use the monthly spread in here for recording my bank balance, and it's very simple. At the bottom of the box, I put the balance in my current account, my checking account. And then at the top of the box, I put the balance in my savings account, but I only write that in if it changes, because that only changes either when I deposit money into it or when I take money out of it, which doesn't happen all the time. So at the bottom of the box, there should be a number every day or nearly every day, because I try to check my bank balance every day. But at the top of the box, there's only a number like maybe every few weeks when the savings balance changes. And the other thing that I note down in here is if I've done something that like kind of will be reflected in my bank account but is different than how it looks. So like, for example, James works in the market and he gets so he often ends up with cash, and there's no branch of our bank anywhere near us. So it's easier for him to give the money to me and then I transfer it out of my bank account. And so I note that in here so that when I see that my bank account balance has gone down, that I don't panic because actually I have the cash, if that makes sense. So that's what I use the monthly spread in this for. It's very simple, but it's really good for that because you can just see at a glance, you have a nice overview of the month. Then I have this A6 Hobonichi, and this is my gratitude log. So I'm thinking of switching this out at the end of at the end of June, because as I've mentioned before, this is an AVEC, which means it's split into 2 volumes for the year, and the first volume ends at the end of June. And I've been finding it a bit overwhelming, like having to have a whole separate book for gratitude, which is why the thought of putting it into my weeks is very appealing, because I'm always looking at that anyway throughout the day, so it would be very easy to write in it naturally, rather than having to set a time specially for it. So what I've been using the monthly spread in this for, and I do really like this, is at the beginning of the day, I write down the thing that I'm most looking forward to that day. So it's things like making a new video, watching a film, seeing colleagues, getting coconut latte. It's usually things like that. But so whatever the thing is that I feel like I'm most looking forward to that day, I'll write it down. And then at the end of the day, I go back and tick it off if I've done it. So the idea is it's supposed to make me happy to see that I've done all of these nice things that I was looking forward to. And then I can look back over the month and see like, oh, look at all those nice things that I did. So I do actually like that. It's fun thinking of like the thing that I'm most looking forward to in the day. What can be kind of depressing is on the days when I don't manage to do it, because then when I go back and I can't take it off, it makes me kind of sad. And usually it's because I was working too late and we ran out of time and had to go to bed, and so that kind of depresses me, and then it has the opposite effect of what it should. But in general, it's quite a nice way to use the monthly spread, because I feel like if you're using one of these planners that has a monthly spread in addition to a weekly or daily spread, and you're using it for a specific purpose, sometimes you might feel like you don't know how to use this, and it's going to waste. So it's quite nice just to use it for one specific thing that, you know, it gives you a whole new aspect. Like for me, before I had a gratitude log that just had daily pages. It was a Moleskine, so there was no issue of monthly pages. But then when I started using this, it kind of was born out of a desire not to waste the monthly pages. But then I ended up with this system which actually does sort of contribute something extra to it. It's an extra dimension that makes it more fun. So that's that one. And then the last one is my Disc Agenda Turquoise, which is my meal planner. So I'm actually not using the monthly pages in this at all at the moment, but I was using them before, and so I just thought I'd show you how I was using them. So I was using them in a similar way to how I was using the monthly pages in my cousin, which is I was using them to write down events, and these were events that affected both James and me, because this is the planner that is kind of the kind of joint planner that we both look at. So it's a meal planner, right? So that's its main function. But because we both look at it, I was also using this as a joint family event planner. So I'd write down things like if I was going to be out, or if there was an appointment like a delivery coming, something that we both had to know about, then I would use it for that. I gave up on it because James got his Manta. He's also got a Disc Agenda Manta, and he's been using that. And so usually I just tell him now, like, this is happening at this time, and he writes it in the Manta. And that's more straightforward than this, because usually I would write in this and then he wouldn't look at it. And then I was kind of like, well, why am I just writing things in this planner for no reason when only I look at them and they're already in my personal planner anyway? So that's the idea of it anyway. So I think it could be quite useful for that. If you do have some kind of like a joint schedule, it is a nice amount of space because it's not a lot. So if you have a very complicated joint schedule, then it's not going to be enough room. But if it's just things like, we know one of you is out that day, or you're both going to something or whatever, then it's fine, especially if you're using the bulk of the planner for something else, like in this case, meal planning. So that's how I was using this. And that is my last planner with monthly pages. So all in all, quite a few different ways to use monthly spreads, and I'm sure that I'm only scratching the surface of the various ways that you could use monthly spreads as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon. Bye!